Okay, kids, sorry for the second part two edition of the importance of the steam engine. This is Michelle Zagambik, your teacher, and unfortunately I had to do that because Screencastify has a 10-minute limit on free version, so I went past that. I will try to make my screencast shorter in the future. Anyway, so we left off with SpaghettiOs. Let's pick it up from there. I don't know if you have a comfort food. SpaghettiOs are mine. I know you're thinking that's completely wacky and weird, and I agree. But growing up, when I was your age, my go-to comfort food was SpaghettiOs. If you have a comfort food such as ice cream or wonton soup, I won't judge you. So don't judge me on my SpaghettiOs. But remember, the point of the SpaghettiOs is that you're supposed to cook them on the stovetop, not in the microwave. And when you do that, they bubble, they create steam. The steam expands, puts pressure on the lid that causes the lid to bounce up and down and move. That movement creates power. And when you look at devices and early engines, and even the more complicated ones we have today, and you're trying to make sense of it all, just remember that it all goes back to that key concept of the SpaghettiO analogy. Moving right along. So why was the steam engine important? What did it do for society? Well, it did a few things. One is that before the steam engine created power for factories relied on water wheels, and the water provided movement for the wheel, and the movement created power for the machines inside. But that could create problems because there were droughts sometimes and there wasn't enough water to propel the wheel. Sometimes in the winter, the water would freeze and there would be no movement. Or in the case of floods, it could cause debris to come downstream and get stuck in the wheel and cause problems. So steam was a more consistent source of power, and it was something they could rely on. Furthermore, the factories no longer had to be situated on waterways like they had in the past. A lot of early cities are on water, partially for this reason. Running water, of course, for the power feature, along with transportation and other things. But now that the steam engine had been introduced as a power source for factories, they could move these factories and then city growth inland as well. In addition to that, the steam engine allowed for, since it was more consistent, it allowed for better production, which means more supply of goods. And that brought down the cost of items so people could afford things better. And it made people realize, that they could create inventions too. And if they could create inventions, what's to stop them at making something that powers things like factories or later transportation? Why not make things that can help us create food, such as farm machinery, which will propel the agricultural revolution. And once we have better farm equipment and the science around it, we can have bigger population. We could sustain a bigger population too. So a lot of great things came out of the steam engine. One of the ones that we talk about a lot is transportation. So here we have an example of the steam engine in a locomotive or train. You can see this animation. I did not create this. Explain That Stuff did. And it's really cute. So they put coal in here and it starts to burn, and then it goes into a chamber with water and it's going to create steam, which is going to come out here and move into these chambers. And then from the chamber, it's going to push these pistons, which are going to attach to these brackets, if you will, and then it will force the rotation of the wheels, which causes the steam locomotive to move. Besides the steam engine, which was developed in 1804, there was also the steamboat, which I thought was interesting to point out because the steamboat actually came out, the earliest one in 1787. And the reason why I wanted to point this out was because it was tested on the Delaware River, which, being in New Jersey, was kind of neat for me to know. But it wasn't actually the model they settled on. In 1807, Robert Fulton was the one who came up with the steamboat that was going to be the most popular design or model that we use, and it drove at a quick, or drove it. I guess we should say sailed, but sailed isn't right either because it's not using sails. Sails. I can't even speak. 5 miles per hour, only 5 miles per hour. The steamboat went up to Albany. The locomotives or railways became a lot more popular because they could move on land instead of just relying on waterways. One more thing I wanted to point out to you regarding transportation is that steam engines were also used in cars and even some airplanes, but that term horsepower, which was actually introduced by James Watt himself, and you can see that in this picture here, there is a horse that is pulling weight, and it says here that 1 horsepower equals 735.5 watts. And then another comparison here says 1 horsepower equals 550 foot-pounds per second. I don't really, it's amazing. It's just amazing to me. I don't really know how they're calculating this. Math is just, it's phenomenal. It's hard to understand for me, but it was just really neat to see and to think about how they used to rely on what they would call these beasts of burden, who would have to lug and carry and pull all of these things. And it would take them a lot of time, and they would move slowly, and they would need to rest. And then now you have a machine that's going to do the same power as however many horses. And so that's how the term horsepower came out. And you can see even some of our modern inventions, vehicles like the Mustang here, that give credit to that, the concept of horsepower in Mustangs and how quick and strong they were, that type of beast or horse. Really neat. At any rate, so how did the steam engine change the world? Well, by this slide, I hope you can tell that it clearly created pollution, which has a lot of negative effects. Coal is not the only fossil fuel used for energy today. There's also gas and oil. So these 3 fossil fuels create our pollution that we know about today in the world, but they also create our industrialized world, which we rely on for consumerism and spending money and having products that we know and love, and create a luxurious lifestyle for some of us, particularly those of us who are in industrialized worlds. We are the lucky ones, the fortunate ones, those who have money. We're the haves, whereas the parts of the world that are not industrialized tend to be the have-nots, who don't have things that provide comfort and ease, such as transportation, such as air conditioning, such as, clean water. And these are things that we take for granted. And these are things that industry provides us with that not all of the world has. So I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about the steam engine and what it has done for us today. And I hope you enjoy your activities in class. Talk to you soon.